want to take the phone call of my lawyer, director of Tulane Law School's sports law program, Gabe Feldman, at Sports Law Guy on Twitter, back here on The Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Gabe?
I'm good, Rich. How are you?
Okay, so why did the NFLPA put all of that information from the hearing, the appeals hearing, out there in their filing in federal court yesterday? Why did that happen?
Well, in a lot of cases, that would have been submitted to the court but submitted under seal, and that's what's typically happened in the cases in Minnesota where it's not open to the public but the judge gets to see it. But I think the Players Association and the league both wanted the judge to be able to see everything, to know how to base his decision. So it's not unusual that the Players Association attached all that information to its submission. What is relatively unusual is that the judge allowed it to be filed or required it to be filed publicly so we could all see it.
So the articles that I'm seeing written about how the NFL might be embarrassed by this or be careful what you wish for, what would that mean if the NFL... Just so the NFL has no problem with this being out there, you don't think?
Well, no, I think they wanted it to be filed under seal. And Judge Berman, in his initial order, said he likes things to be public. He thinks the public has a right to know. They have an interest in this sort of stuff. So I think clearly if it were up to the NFL, this would have been filed under seal like most of the other transcripts have been and the other exhibits have been, like in the Ray Rice case, the Adrian Peterson case, which obviously went to court. So I think it's clear why the NFL didn't want this out, because even if it doesn't have any impact on the final result or the final decision by the judge, every person in the country is now second-guessing the commissioner's decision based on the transcript and all these other exhibits, and that's the exact opposite of what the commissioner wants. The commissioner believes that it's in his power and that he is in the best position to determine what's in the best interest of the league, and it doesn't matter what other people think. Not a federal judge and certainly not the fan on the street. But this just opens the door for everyone to pick apart every single sentence of every single witness and every single document out there. And that's not what this is about. This is about whether there is some defect in the notice that made the process fundamentally unfair that requires the suspension to be overturned.
So now that's the court of public opinion. As for the court, that's what I want to get at here. It's still about the process, right? And if that is the case, what was filed yesterday by the Players Association, what does that do for their case about the process?
I don't think it does anything, because the judge was going to get the information he needed anyway.
Sure.
And let's be clear, as much as we all like to sit there, or maybe not like to sit there and read through the transcript and read through the documents and highlight interesting passages, if it was interesting and it was relevant to the case, I promise you Jeff Kessler and his team of lawyers picked up on it and put it in their briefs, put it in their submissions to court. There's nothing that they missed that's going to help their case that they haven't already expressed at some point or are planning to express to the court. So I don't think this has any real impact on the judge's final decision. He was going to get this information one way or another. This is primarily, I think, about court of public opinion and maybe some of the pressure that could be put on the NFL to try to settle this. Maybe this convinces them to say, you know what, we don't want this further second guessing. We don't want this to become even more public. Let's put this to bed and let's give them a one-game suspension or maybe just a significant fine.
But what if that happens? Hold on a minute then. So why would the NFL do that? I mean, give me the way that the NFL, after all that it has done, why would they now suddenly just reverse course and say, you know what, after further review, Tom gets no games? Out of the fear that Richard Berman, the judge, could go ahead and strip the collectively bargained right the commissioner has had in his process?
Well, he wouldn't be able to strip it totally. He'd be able to strip it in this particular case. He doesn't have the power to undo the terms of the collective bargaining agreement. Mm-hmm. He can just rule on the case he has before him and the specific facts and circumstances. So there's certainly a concern, though, that this would set a precedent going forward that in the next player discipline case, the Players Association would say, look, this is what Judge Berman did in New York. He said that the commissioner cannot hand down the suspension for X, Y, and Z reasons, which holds in this case. We've already seen that. The Players Association is relying on what Judge Doty said in Adrian Peterson to say that Roger Goodell couldn't do this to Tom Brady. So, yeah, I think they could be fearful, and they probably are fearful a bit of what precedent might be set, and Judge Berman can lean on them a little bit and say, if you don't settle, I'm going to take this out of your control, and that could be used against you in future cases. And it could also be the recognition now that this is also all out in the public that this is going to get dragged out day after day after day after day until they make it go away, and the fastest way to make it go away is to settle it. Now, part of the problem is a little bit of that leverage is gone because it's already out in the public.
Right.
And people can pick this apart whether the case settles or not. So to the extent that that was a leverage point, that's mostly disappeared, but Judge Berman still has plenty of leverage and can hang over the commissioner's head and the league's head that there is a possibility of a negative decision, that we force you to do something you don't want to do. So maybe it's in your best interest to second or third or fourth guess your decision and compromise.
I've got a couple more minutes left with you, and I got two members of the media I want to ask you about on this thing. First things first, if the Players Association want to make the leaks that the NFL has made, the stuff that the Patriots have put out there, or the emails, if they want to make the NFL leaks and how they or the leaks that people purport to have come from the NFL in the early stages of this, if they want to make that part of this case to prove that the process has been flawed, is it possible that Chris Mortensen gets called by a federal judge and is asked, who told you what you reported about the deflated footballs? Is that at all possible, Gabe?
I think it's highly unlikely in this case. I think this is going to be a case where there's not only going to be no discovery of what Chris Mortensen was told or who told him, but they're not taking any additional discovery on facts more directly relevant to the case. I think the judge is going to rule on the legal issues here and the process here, and the peripheral stuff in terms of the leaks, I don't think becomes relevant at all unless there's a separate lawsuit filed.
Okay.
But in terms of this suspension, I don't think it comes to that.
So everything that's out there is what is going to be in the case in front of the judge. That's it right now. There's not going to be any further discovery, is what you're saying.
Right, unless the judge changes his mind and orders something different, but he's made it clear, and the parties have agreed, that there'll be no additional discovery. Now, they may change course on that, but as of now, there won't be anything new coming in.
So do I need to lawyer up that my email to Tom Brady about how Jim Harbaugh is now the Michigan head coach and celebrating that fact with a fellow Wolverine, and his response to me essentially was, we're good, go blue. It's a great day for the Wolverines. Do I have to lawyer up in any way, shape, or form, or maintain my old cell phone at all, Gabe?
Well, I thought you destroy it every couple of months, but I think of all the documents I saw, that was the smoking gun. That's the thing I'd be most fearful of if I were anyone. But I think your non-signed sports law certificate from Tulane will cover you. I think you can represent yourself.
Okay. I could do that. Sort of like, hey, Joe Pesci. I could go on and talk about the Utes.
The two Utes.
Well, we do play the Utah Utes, Michigan, in our opener, so we could say we're taking on the Utes in that way. I could do that, Gabe. I like it.
It sounds like you've got it. Yeah, I don't just hand out that degree to anyone.
You don't just hand out a degree and not sign it to anybody. Gabe, thanks for calling in. Well, I will call you back as the day of the Judge Berman mandated mediation between the two sides takes place. Okay?
Sounds good. Thanks, Rich.
You bet. That's Gabe Feldman calling into the program here on The Rich Eisen Show.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern. On Audience.